Welcome to the Stoa. The Stoa is a digital campfire where we cohere and dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of what's happening now. All right, check-ins. You want to go first? Want me to go first?
I'll go. I feel mostly light in my body. There's a little alarm going off. I feel quite light and sort of a giddiness that came up in a Stoa session the other day. The use of the word giddiness, and I feel excited to be here with you, Peter.
Mm-hmm. So I feel a wave of warmth just hearing that, your last share. There's like sort of like a really solid groundedness I feel right now. And there's maybe like 0.5% nervousness. I had a lot of coffee today, so that could be, might have something to do with it. Cool. So yeah, I guess to set some context for people who are just tuning in, like who the heck are these guys? What are they talking about with their check-ins? So people who have been coming to the Stoa, regular users and people who are actually facilitators here, I am inviting them on my podcast essentially. And this is going to be on YouTube, but eventually it's going to be on the actual podcast. And it serves two purposes, really, just like an opportunity to get to know you more, because we talked in Stoa sessions, we chatted for like 30 minutes on practical stuff. We're texting each other, sending each other like freestyle raps, but we never actually had like a good proper chat. You know, so it's like one, that's an opportunity which I looking forward to, and the other one is to introduce you to the already established audience that I have on the podcast and the YouTube channel and whatnot. So then they can get attracted to what you're bringing to the Stoa. So I guess like maybe just like a high level question, like who are you, Tyson?
Wow.
And you can take that any direction.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I mean, I am deeply fascinated and interested in freestyle. And what that is to me is creative self-expression. And what creative self-expression is to me is a engagement in what is emerging. It's engaging, it's participating in what is happening right now. And I think there's something that it's like there's a signal that I send to the the world, the universe, the cosmos. There's a signal that I send when I start wanting to share the experience of creative self-expression with others. Like if I choose to sort of embody a facilitator role or a teacher role or just a sharing. And there's something about that that really amplifies my experience of that participation in creativity. And so, I mean, I feel like a conduit at times for freestyle. I feel like a conduit for spontaneous, in the moment self-expression. And I think the reason that I feel so resonant with being that is because of how much time I spent in my life in the past overthinking and being like stifled, experiencing that paralysis by analysis, being so caught up in rehearsing the things that I did, whether it was talking to a woman I was attracted to, or it was approaching someone that I saw as a mentor or a teacher or a guide and I wanted to get to know them, or I mean, so many things. The list goes on and on. And so I am really in the discovery of how can I live more in flow and in full participation in my whole body. And then I guess the part of this hero's journey is to then want to share the things that I've learned with other people. Like, guys, try this on. It's really fun. Yeah.
And so just to pay you a compliment, I really like your voice, you know, the sound of your voice, the quality of it. There's like a masculinity to it. There's like a youthfulness to it and like an earnestness to it. So you got a lot of good stuff going on there.
Thank you.
I want to make you blush and giggle before the show's over. So you do a session at the Stoa every
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, called Freestyling through a pandemic or during a pandemic. I can't remember. We're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to rename it a little bit. Um, yeah. So how did you get into freestyling? Before we talk about the
Yeah.
actual session, how'd you get into it?
Cool. Thank you. So I was, without giving the whole backstory, I found myself in Hawaii on this beautiful property, this piece of land, like right next to where a lot of the filming for Jurassic Park was done. And I was there participating in a retreat that I helped organize. So there were some influential, like social media celebs and some of the American Ninja Warriors and some musicians, like this eclectic group of people that were sort of invited to come and participate in this social experiment called tribe design, seeing how strong of a tribe these people could form, all meeting each other for the first time. But then there was also that twist of like inviting people that had followings so that they could market it. So it was this combination of a social experiment and this and like a business project. And but at the pillar of the they're at the let's see, the foundation of the experience was engaging in experiments around self acceptance through self expression and radical authenticity. Those are sort of our nodes. And we invited some musicians. So Tubby Love and the Roots family, for anyone that's listening is looking for, is like good, soulful Hawaiian, like rootsy music, and other musicians. Dustin Thomas, he's amazing. And so you could say these are musicians that have been inspired by like Xavier Rudd, Trevor Hall, if anyone's heard of those artists. Anyway, they would just break out in musical jam sessions, like in the kitchen, outside. You just be walking, and all of a sudden you hear someone's beatboxing, and then someone else walks up with their guitar and starts playing along, and then a girl walks up and starts singing, and then someone will step in and start freestyling. And I was so amazed to see these people that could just like turn on like that, and it's like it seemed like at a moment's notice, and because it seemed so far from what I had experienced. And I also grew up thinking I had no musical gifts whatsoever. So one thing led to another, and we did actually like a full freestyle circle. This was a formal exercise in this retreat experience where everyone was going to get in the center of the circle and freestyle, whether they have any experience or not. And I waited till like right till the very end until someone was like pushing me in, like, it's your turn, get in there. And I went in, freestyled, probably just, had it blacked out. I don't remember a thing that I said. And that was it. But I just remember this sense being with me that like keep practicing that. Like that was so hard for me, but simultaneously like so exciting. Like it was that balance of this is impossible and I really want to be able to do it. And so then I was lucky enough to have a really good friend that I spent some time with in San Diego, and he played guitar and he sang. And so in the evenings, we would kind of just like sit around on a park bench or something, looking up at the stars, and he'd play guitar, and we'd just take turns going back and forth, just freestyling. And then that's when it caught me.
And when you mean caught you, like, did you join like groups, clubs, you practice every day? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I did at this time. I was just very compelled towards doing things to risk my reputation. I was very influenced by Brad Blanton and Radical Honesty, and so any opportunity I had to like risk my reputation, I was looking for it. And so I went live on Facebook for an extended number of days in a row. Every day while I was hanging out with my friend, we would go live on Facebook and freestyle and just like film each other, play beats. And in these videos, I'm like pale. I'm already quite white, but I am just as white as can be, just ghost white. You can see my voice in my face. It's like sort of trembling. And so what had caught me was this like this opportunity to sort of shed the skin of who I'm not. Like I could see myself and the tension that was in my body as I was doing this and how hard it was. And I wanted to just like I wanted to break through that, whatever that hard layer was that kept me from just being fluid and free in my expression. And so and then it was also the fact that I was doing this with a friend. We were kind of sharing in this practice together, and there was this shared struggle. And so there was this every day this accountability. We would like wake up and just play beats and start freestyling. And so there was something about the way that it connected the two of us. If it weren't for that, if I was in my room alone doing this,
Right.
there would have been no hope, like no chance that I would have loved it the way that I did. It was the way that it connected the two of us that was important to it. Like I said, like catching me, like I just couldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that when you first went to that conference or that festival, and then till now?
Yeah, that was about 4 years ago, and then since then it's kind of it's come in waves into my life. Freestyle.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I asked that question just because you're pretty good at it, from my perspective. So I wonder how long that journey was. And so how'd you get on the Stolar's radar again? You the Game B space, is that the
Yeah, yeah. So
Jordan Hall?
I've been paying attention to Jordan Hall, Daniel Schmachtenberger, John Vervaeke, and so at some point maybe like you uploaded a video of John or something, and it was recommended YouTube,
Right.
something like that.
Cool, cool. Yeah, so I started seeing you come at the Stoa sessions, asking great questions, very eager. I forget how
Yeah.
you emailed me or something. I don't even know how we initially encountered,
Well,
but
and I mentioned freestyle in a session, and then someone else sent me a message on Zoom, and they were like, "I've been thinking about using freestyle. It's a tool for sense making."
uh,
And then since then, he and I have freestyled a lot together in these virtual sessions. So, but the meeting closed before I could get his contact info. So then I reached out to you asking for
oh
it, and that
yeah,
kind of I think opened some of the possibilities.
yeah. I'm just running on full Daemon energy, so I was like, oh, something's there. Like I
Yeah,
sniffed something out,
yeah,
right? And then I think you
yeah.
and I talked, and I'm like, let's
Hmm.
do it. Let's do a freestyling, sense making freestyling session. I really love the idea. Um,
Well, and I had
and
reached out to you as well, like wanting to support the Stoa with sort of
right,
like
right, right.
administrative duties, because that's what a lot of what I've done in the past. Like
Yeah.
this retreat, for example, what got me to that retreat with some people that I had been following on YouTube and tracking and were role models to me. I reached out to them. I helped them with logistics. So
Mm,
that's been like this sort of this tools, like how I would get into circles that I wanted to involve myself in was with administrative duties and logistics.
hmm.
So I went kind of back onto um, that pattern, and that's the essence that I reached out to you in. But you were so quick to call out that freestyle energy and just like didn't even give much attention to the whole logistics thing.
Right.
And so I appreciate you for that. That was like quite refreshing, and it felt good to be like seen in that way. You were like, it's like you wanted my best gift and only that. Everything else was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
let's leave that. Let's not mess with that for now.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You know, like who knows? Like you're helping out the store in
Sure.
many capacities, but yeah, right there, that moment, it's like I want you to give. I want Tyson to give his gift to the world, and or at least a good part of it. And this seems like it is this freestyling stuff. Um, and so we kind of workshop briefly. You did most of it, obviously, and now we have the session every week at the Stoa. We're freestyling through a pandemic. Again, we're probably going to rename it, but I was at the first one or the second one, and I'm like, wow, I was at my knife's edge, man. Like, like before I tell a little bit more of my experience, like maybe you can kind of like generally to people, what's it like doing a freestyle through a pandemic with Tyson?
Nice. Yeah. To me, it's an intentional space to practice leaning into uncertainty and unknowingness. And so some of the sessions we even started by just popcorning in and sharing, just speaking, what's something that you're deeply in the process of, or what is something that's uncertain, unknown for you, especially right now. And then we go into the freestyle as if that is a practice in becoming more intimate with not knowing, because that's sort of the nature of freestyle and streaming our consciousness is that we don't know what we're going to say. So you have the opportunity, I think, to feel like it's a very approachable space to step into that unknown creative self-expression and really have a group of people like hyping you up as you do it. That's something that I really want it to be known for is like when I'm freestyling, I can look at the grid view and I just see all these smiley faces and
Right.
people waving their hands. And that to me, whatever energy comes up, whether it's sometimes when I'm just freestyling, like things will come up that seem like dark thoughts or negativity, or things will come up where I just seem like I'm confused and lost and I don't know what I'm talking about. Or sometimes I think that I sound like really impressive and awesome. It's the whole spectrum. But it's an opportunity to just embrace that and let what comes up come out and then
Right.
be like really celebrated for that.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. And that's the feeling when we did it. When I did it the first time, it's like first of all, there's this group flow. Like you're just like it
Yeah.
was I think 10 people, and everyone's just flowing together with the beat, and like people are messing up, pausing, feeling stupid, and everyone's just shining love on them. And when I went up, it was like in my head, just like I'm creating, when listening to other people, I was like creating lines in my head, like, oh, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this. Like, it's just like, because I have acting background. And so it's like
Mm-hmm.
all memorizing lines and stuff like that.
Sure.
And when I used to public speak, I used to memorize my speech verbatim. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I was good at memorizing, but you need to be extemporaneous if you're going to be really like a live speaker that people want to watch you speak. And the same thing with freestyle, and then the way you're presenting it, you can't have something prepared. Or maybe you can, you kind of arrange it like those rap battlers do. But if you
Mm-hmm.
go in it with like a script of how it's going to come out, you're gonna look stupid, or it's just gonna not gonna land.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta like let it flow. And then when you let it flow, like when I let it flow, it's like I didn't think I was that good, but at least I leaned into it, and if something came out of my mouth, and I got love on behalf of everyone else, and just felt really, really, really good.
Yeah, I hear that. So like, I think that this is so interesting the way I connect us with this process of thinking in public
Mm.
and wanting to share the process because I too, all the time, I mean, I have things that I've written, I have things that I can lean on, and it's tempting because it gives me that certainty of like, well, people might begin to identify me as the things that I say here. And so it's safe to go back to the things that I've written in the past that I've chosen as like, this is a good representation of me and what I believe and who I am. Let me express that. And then it's sort of propping up that reputation that I want to have. But if I do that, it keeps me from the process of discovering something
Mm.
that happens in like in that experience. I think of just like documenting over creating or rehearsing or thinking in public. It's there's just something about this energy of being seen in the mode of discovery that I want more of in my life. And then those are also, I could look at that in the terms of freestyle. Like I know when someone is truly in that essence of freestyle, and I almost want another name for it because freestyle, like in hip hop culture, comes from a written that's just free of style. So it's just like a bunch of bars. It might not tell a story. It's sort of just random.
Uh,
The freestyle and like in the essence that I'm speaking of it is sort of a stream of consciousness, and it doesn't even have to be hip hop or rap. It could be conversational, but it just has a little more of that music and that rhythm and poetry in it.
mm.
So I'm interested in calling it other things like streaming, or I'm searching a little bit there. And then yeah, same as the freestyle artists that I've been most attracted to, I can make that same connection to like journalists, right? So if I can see a journalist in like that true authentic space of discovery, and they're sharing that process rather than like perfecting everything before it's shared,
Yeah,
I like that. That's what I'm leaning towards right now.
yeah, I like that a lot. And like the thing that I think is closest that I'm doing. Well, like I
Hmm.
feel like I'm living my whole life like that right now in a way, just following the daemon and whatnot. But like my journals, every morning I write, and I just almost feel like they're channeled. I'm pushing myself at the edge of my thinking. They're all different qualities, colors, but all these emotions are being fleshed out of them too. And it's like, and there's a part of me that just wants to like hit a home run each time. And so I'm like, oh, what was the one that got the most attention, or which one that felt really good, and try to replicate that when if I even attempt it, I can't attempt it because it's just so inauthentic. And it's the same thing with I imagine with freestyling. Um,
Hmm. Would you say there's a process of it becoming more natural to get into that space where it felt like you were channeling or streaming your consciousness, or is it like equally challenging to get there every time? How is your relationship with that sort of sweet spot unfolded?
I would say like over 90% of the time it's easy. It just
Hmm.
I fall into it these days because I'm not really thinking. I'm just like listening these days with
Hmm.
every aspect of my life. Some days I feel really sluggish, and then there's like a challenge, and I'm like pumping back espresso after espresso just to get something going.
Hmm.
And it feels a little forced those days. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's just I don't want to speak too much of it because it's like
hmm,
I could lose it
totally.
tomorrow type thing. But I think
Sure.
I'm getting like you get a felt sense of the process in a way.
Hmm.
Um, and what came up too is that I like, as you know, one of my projects here, it's almost like a bait and switch, this whole Stoa project, because it's like there's only like two real Stoics, like me and Daniel, in this whole kind of like community that's forming. And then everyone else is like not really a Stoic in this space. Um, but I really want to reinvent Stoicism. I want it to be reborn. And because it's like it's a like the majority of the text went missing throughout history. No one really knows how they practiced. We just got these core propositions that just like any self-help author would agree with too. So it's not like magic or anything.
Sure.
So why not make it sexy? You know, like why not like have these cultural practices like freestyle and purpose it in order to become a sovereign individual? You know, so stoicism is like focus on what's in your control, not, and what's not in your control is what someone thinks of you. You know, what your avatar in the spectacle looks like to someone else. You don't have control over that, but you have control over what you say in this moment and how you say it. And a practice, a psychotechnology like freestyling, if you repurpose it with that philosophical lens, it helps so much becoming a better stoic. It helps so much becoming a better philosopher, a better sense maker. You know, you name it.
Yeah, one way it's helped me a lot is by getting that opportunity in those moments where I say something that I feel embarrassed by, or I make a mistake, or I'm just not quite hitting the target the way that I want. Like the words just aren't adding up the way that I imagine them to. There's so many things that come up where I feel like I'm missing.
Yeah.
And especially the embarrassment or the awkwardness or just like looking like I'm fumbling. And in those times to just send myself some love and then do it again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like having that practice that really encourages just like whatever my last effort was, just like forgetting about it entirely and then jumping in again. And
Yeah.
so in that way, it's like it can be very unforgiving in the moment because I don't feel like I'm in control of it. And so it's going to almost take me where it's going to take me. But then forgiving in the sense that like as soon as I enter this freestyle, I forget what the embarrassing thing was that happened in the last one. In a way, I'm just boom, I'm here in a new moment. And so that's a way that it has been a real practice. And I'm interested in this conversation because I'm wanting to reframe this as a practice. And it sort of is a new thing. Many people have practiced freestyle, done freestyle in say traditional hip hop ciphers or in a performative way. Though this experience of like using freestyle very intentionally as a life practice for inner development,
Yes.
that sort of happened in me very organically. No one taught me really how to do that. That was like my process of discovering it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you. So freestyling as a psychotechnology, that's not a thing yet, as
Yeah, I
far
mean,
as
I
you
think
know.
it is in the sense that like when someone's freestyling, whether they're using it in that way intentionally or not, it's a psychotechnology. Like,
Right. Right.
and there have been so many like this is hip hop. There's an entire scene of hip hop that was not people that were recording artists. They would just go to clubs and freestyle, just cipher. It's a whole world. It's a whole culture, and so it's been being used, and I think in a very like powerful way to connect communities and to empower individuals and communities and to keep it's like to freestyle and hip hop was a practice for individuals in certain um, neighborhoods and cultures and parts of I mean especially in its birth in New York and its unfolding there it's like this people had to do hip hop and engage in ciphers to like keep a personality going because there were so many um, forces that wanted to make them feel suppressed. And
Right.
so this was like a tool to rebel. And for me, I was the quiet, shy kid sitting at the table. So like sure, I didn't grow up like someone in that was in a poor community somewhere in New York. I grew up in like the suburbs, super sheltered, but still in my own way, I was disconnected from like my voice and like my expression. And so freestyle kind of found me at a time where it could be a tool for me to develop a character and personality and a voice.
Yeah.
So I think that it has been used for that. It's seen by a lot of people as a very powerful like tool and something that is quite literally like saved lives and built communities and like kept people together. So there's something about all that that's important to me. Like I want to give respect to where this thing came from.
Yeah. There's like a
Yeah.
history,
Hmm.
socioeconomic history about it that did serve a psychotechnology function.
Hmm.
Um, but my sense is that it never really had that conscious frame that this is a psychotechnology
Yeah,
or
exactly.
life practice. And then that's something especially tied to the whole sense making, stoicism, philosophizing type thing. So it seems somewhat new or a new spin on it that you're doing. And who knows, maybe there's someone in Japan doing exactly the same thing that we don't know about or
Sure.
whatever. Um, yeah, I like that a lot.
It's a tool for going meta as well, because what I find is like the best way to practice freestyle is to just freestyle about what is happening right now in the center of this freestyle. So if I'm freestyling with you, and I might be searching for all kinds of profound ideas that I could share so that you'd be impressed, or I can freestyle about what I notice.
Mm-hmm,
And then
mm-hmm.
from there, by sharing what I notice, then imaginations will come up. So then I should freestyle about what I imagine. Great. Now, what do you notice about what you're feeling about that imagination? And so it's really dialing into that as like a stream of consciousness and sort of observing what is here now rather than like the performative element where it's like, people would sit in their rooms and like write bars and kind of meditated on it and practice, and then they'd show up at the club and sort of show off. So there's still a freestyle element to it. But I think where I'm directing this is in that sort of investigative stream of consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting challenge because it's like there's a couple of challenges that I want to talk to you about with this thing. So one is interesting about the actual psychotechnology there is that you're right. In order to make it pure, if you will, or good, or however, whatever qualifier you want to put on that, is you got to just be in the moment. You can't be in performance mode. You got to be in being mode, like as Vervaeke calls it. Uh, but the thing is, if you're in being mode, in it's evident to other people that you're in being mode, and then it's sort of like people want to applaud you, right? It's almost like it's an excellent performance. It's
Mm.
like you can't avoid the sort of being in the spectacle because the spectacle is going to notice, or people are going to notice via the spectacle in a way. Uh, and then it's so hard not to get seduced by that because it's like I remember improv. When I took improv, I just took improv acting for just to get confident in social situations so I can kind of speak extemporaneously and just not
Yeah.
try to engineer words and stuff. And it worked. But I find improv, especially sketch improv, it's like everyone gets addicted to like saying stupid stuff. So they get claps and laughs, right? And so then,
Mhm.
and then people I noticed in the improv community, and if anyone's in improv, uh, I'm not going to apologize. I think it's true. So it's like, so it's
Yeah.
like people like in the improv community that I hung out with, I couldn't really stand hanging out with them because they're always making jokes all the time. And it's like they're competing each other with making jokes and they're trying to out joke each other. And I'm like, can we just like, I like jokes, but can we just talk serious for like a couple seconds? Um,
Mhm.
and so I didn't like the improv community, but I think they were trained for that
Mhm.
because they got the applause. And I imagine there's something similar to the like what's a cipher? I don't know what that term is. It like it's
So
basically
Cypher is basically a group of people circled up and playing beats and then taking turns spitting bars, freestyling.
okay. So I imagine these ciphers or these sessions that you have. It's like you have to be in that flow state, that being state, but then you're getting recognized because if you're dropping like hot bars or whatever you guys call it,
Hmm.
it's like yes, more of that. And so you're almost
Hmm.
trained to be a certain way.
Yep.
Um,
Now, one thing that's really interesting about that is that if someone stepped into a cipher or showed up at a club and they used another bar that someone else spit, or they
plagiarism, yeah.
even mimicked someone else's flow, people were in there like they took it a very serious responsibility to make sure that you were not mirroring anybody. So it was almost like this outside force that like kept people navigating towards something that was um I want to say unique, or it's like kind of, yeah, pushing them more into that space of like what is going to be the expression that is like that's the flow that emerged from you. And of course it's going to
Yeah.
be influenced by others that we hear, but there's something about that. There was this cultural force that kept people from copying and mimicking others and instead discovering like their personality, their flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like the psychotechnology already existed. It's just it wasn't thought about as like a practice that can be fit into an ecology of practices like we're having at the Stoa, the Wisdom Gym, or whatever.
Hmm.
Um,
And what's interesting, that's very fascinating because hip hop was birthed out of an idea of um, art and graffiti,
yeah.
like b-boying, dancing. and rap. So it was hip hop as like when in its origin was this ecology of practices and a sort.
Yeah.
It was this combination of these three things. But yeah, it's very different. It's like I feel like I'm now borrowing that practice and then yeah, repurposing it for this new sort of movement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And so the thing I find challenging about like maybe marketing it or getting people to come is first there's this, it's an artistic expectation, right? And it's like, I'm not a good freestyle rapper. I've never done this before. Why should I even try doing this, right? Um, so that's one thing. It's like
Yeah.
the intimidation factor, even like signing up. And then when you go in, it's like me and Camille, like Camille did one, I did one, Camille, my wife, we did it different times, and we want to come back. It's just that like it, though the last couple of weeks have been really busy, but I probably could have made time. But I'm like, oh, do I really want to put myself through that again right now? Do I really want to like put myself in the knife's edge and like feel all that cringe and everything? I have
Yeah.
to really build up to it. And even though I have the
Sure.
capacity to do it, it's still I'm hesitant. And if I'm hesitant, there's going to be tons of people that are hesitant to it. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess how do you get people, like that's a marketing question that we're probably both at the edge of our thinking with, is how do you get people
Mm-hmm.
into the space and risk feeling the cringe, looking stupid, all that stuff. Because it's one thing if you have a history of freestyle, then it's like I remember there's a couple of people that came to the sessions that they were like experts. It almost felt like they were showing off and everyone was stumbling around type thing. It's like they weren't at
Yeah.
their knife's edge. Um,
Sure.
so yeah, what was what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think framing it as the focusing on the result or the intention of what is going like what are we going to become by doing this, which is deepening our relationship with uncertainty or freestyling through unknowingness or overcoming perfectionism and self-doubt, things like this rather than like framing it as freestyle.
Yeah.
It's because people might be like, I've never freestyled before, but I do want a deeper relationship with uncertainty, or I do want to deepen my trust in myself, or whatever it is. So I think from a marketing perspective, definitely focusing on the result rather than the mechanism that gets the result.
Yeah.
And then finding for me, I think now part of what's at the edge of my thinking is, and Nick's session gave me new ways to think about this
Yeah.
concept unfolding, is what is the concept that I can create to describe this thing that we're doing, because it is different than
Yes.
freestyle in the traditional
Yes.
hip hop sense of the word. When people start, I don't encourage them to like try and show off and have fire bars and like make the whole crowd go like ooh. Like what I want is for people to actually just speak conversationally in a way where they're streaming their consciousness in the moment. They're not thinking about what they're going to say, but they're letting what comes up come out. It's this honest self-discovery in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But the beat in the music, it is there as like a lubricant. It gives that sense of rhythm
Yes. Yeah.
that allows for a flow to happen. Because if I just ask someone to just speak, it's a different experience if I just were to stream my consciousness conversationally without the music. The music adds
So good.
this sort of this background, this foundational thing, and then what happens from there is that musicality, that rhythm, it will start to, as I get a momentum, then I might start to actually change my flow. I might to become a bit more musical. I might start to rhyme, and then it just allows for it to escalate to a place that allows for like a deeper engagement. There's music to me. I've not even begun to really understand how powerful like engaging in music is, but I just look at it. It's freaking music, man. So I look at like improvisational jazz and all of these things, and then I look at what's happening in these conversations around dialogos, dialectic, stuff that John and Chris are working on, and how I yearn to be in it. I love being in that space of that spontaneous discovery and that being in the magic in the middle, as Ria Beck
Same.
calls it, right? And so, and then I connect it with music. I connect that with like being like improv jazz or the Grateful Dead and these movements that happen through music, and I want to participate in music as well, so it kind of bridges those worlds for me. It's like, so I guess if someone is really interested in dialogos and they also want to be more musical, then this is like the perfect place for them to come and explore that.
Okay, let's just give some ideas. Um, so what did I want to say? Yeah, it was just there. Just give me one moment.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's something I wanted to say. It was like burning, but it just sort of like it's hiding right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I will say is like I have a desire to kind of figure out the correct phrase for this thing.
Yeah,
Like, so you mentioned Nick Benjamin, who he comes to a lot of your ciphers and the
yeah.
freestyling, and he did a session at the Stoa called Concept Unfolding, where we're in this kind of liminal state. We need to kind of create concepts to help ground us. We can't just rely on galaxy brains like the board from them. We got to create our own, and we can have that capacity. So he created a psychotechnology for that, and yeah, it's interesting with the freestyle because it's like you're borrowing like an existing thing, an existing culture that has an existing reputation, and it's like we're trying to attract people to play with that, but that's going to be intimidating for people who are not only who are like not already super users in it. And then your purpose is different. Sort of like the thing about improv, because the two things came back to me now. The thing about improv was the sketch improv is like it's such a beautiful skill set. And Travis Mann, our friend, he used to
Mm-hmm.
work for Second City, and they actually had a thing where they purposed improv in order for business insights. But
Mm-hmm.
the sketch improv, it was like it was catered towards the jokes and then the laughs, right? The same thing with I guess I imagine the freestyle community. That what's rewarded there is what you called hot bars or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's you want to be dope.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's like you want to like you're training yourself to get that, and you say this fucking line, and it was like, oh man, you know. And but when I did your freestyle through the pandemic session, it was more like just the fact that you're spitting something out, right? Is like there's a love there. So you're rewarding something different with your psychotechnology. You're
Yes.
rewarding that flow.
Yes.
Another thing that
And I
came
want to
up,
be judged for my willingness to like go all in,
yeah,
not for how technically skillful it was.
yeah. And so it's like even the kind of the freestyle itself is almost like it's like biased towards that getting reward for
Yep.
the hot bars or whatever. And
Yep.
so that insight right there might help us with the concept unfolding to kind of put a concept there that kind of like maps over to it. The other thing too that came up was Dale Carnegie. So I'm like a trainer, Dale Carnegie, and Dale Carnegie, the corporation's been around for over 100 years. He wrote the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. He was an actor, right?
Mm.
And he couldn't make it as an actor, and so I don't know if he couldn't make it as an actor, but he had an acting background. It didn't work for him or something, and then he started teaching public speaking courses at the YMCA using his acting skills, right? And then that evolved there. So it's like the bait and switch. It's about public speaking, improving yourself, but he used acting techniques. The course is still going on today. I have an acting background, so when I took it originally, I'm like, I know what he's doing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But most people who take it, they don't even think acting. They just think, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just acting stupid in order to be more confident to get over my social anxiety, so I can be more myself.
Mm-hmm.
So the bait and switch there could be happening in this thing too. It's like you're using the freestyle technology, but it's not marketed as freestyling. It's marketed as public speaking, this or that, how to win friends and
Yes.
influence people or whatever.
Yep.
And the last thing I'll say there that came alive was out of all the sort of the communitas sessions that we have at the Stoa and our wisdoms in so far, the one where I felt most communitas was your session when we're all
Mm.
flowing together with that beat. I felt a oneness there, and I'm like, this is it. I got a taste of it. You know, I've tasted it in other areas of my life in person,
Mm-hmm.
circling sessions, whatnot, but I really got a taste of it on Zoom with you guys. And so this is
Yeah.
why I'm kind of annoyed because maybe you're averaging what 10 people per session because it's like it's a struggle kind of getting people into it. Other sessions are having like 60 people, the majority have like 20 to 30. And I'm like, how can we get more people in this session? Because I've tasted it and I see the potential of it, and I want people to experience it. I want people to experience your gift.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I very interesting for me because again, I've done about a dozen retreats in the United States, Canada, Costa Rica, Hawaii, all based around connecting groups of people. The whole purpose is for people to show up as solo travelers and leave with like 50 new awesome friends. That was the idea. And for me, consistently, where I felt the most group flow was always the musical jam sessions around the fire. Every time. Like every every retreat, my peak experience happened in a musical jam session. And so I just really connect with it as as a necessary ingredient for communitas. Like I just, for me, in my community, that because I see myself living, whether it's in a shared neighborhood or some type of emergent commune format, I see myself living in communitas, and I would like to be able to go and make music around the campfire any night that I wish. And so, and it's not, and yeah, I mean, I think there is a way for me to dial this in because I am not musically talented. There's nothing in me that should like say that I'm like good or I'm in any way, yeah, like uniquely qualified to be able to do this. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I would like more people to experience this because I think that it's a, I think it's a really like important ingredient. And I've experienced group flow in its own moments in multiple sessions at the Stoa, though consistently in these freestyle ciphers, there's a different quality where it is really that is what we're that's the purpose in a sense. Like that's where we're aiming toward is that experience of group flow. And so that's what I want to keep doing. And I'm grateful for these sessions being like as they've been, like having 10 people
Yeah,
there.
I know. I
There's a
know.
there's one person that's been to every one so far, I think, which I really appreciate. And but yeah, even in these like small groups of 10, I've been able to really experiment and have some really amazing experiences that I think will help inform these bigger groups and as it grows. So I think it's important for me to like remember to be grateful for this sort of smaller, more intimate setting right now. But I'm also looking toward like, okay, I want to get more people feeling this.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And it's like if you're not operating out of ego, then you're going at the right pace usually.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no failure, only feedback. And this Stoa project is growing slowly, and it needs to grow slowly. But there's also like an urgency too, because we're faced with a meta crisis, and I think most people in the
Sure.
space know that the communitas is the answer for this. And so with this session, I think like step one, I think you're right. Marketing it and even the title has to gesture towards more of what you're trying to achieve, like with like the flow and whatnot, and communitas, rather than the actual sort of the, the the performance piece of it.
Yeah, and
Um,
also because the modality changes. Like that's what I'm realizing. Like freestyle,
yeah,
it's the actual what it is and how I facilitate it and how I use it, that it's changing. And so I don't want it to be, and then also I want it to have a new name, and so I'm calling on my coinage game here and yours and anyone else.
yeah,
So yeah, it's like the modality can change and evolve. So it really is about it's like where are we aiming?
yeah, yeah. So I like that. Let's just like with the coinage game, I just wrote three things to
Nice.
myself. Well, it's like free logos, so like dialogos, like free logos, uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
rhythm, unknowing flow or knowingness
Mm-hmm.
flow. Like
Yeah.
I'm not too crazy about any of those, but it's just like something that is in that spirit.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm with you.
Yeah, because if we have like a kind of a name where it's like uncertainty rhythm or unknowingness flow, what the heck is that? But it makes it, they know what it means because it makes sense. It's like, okay, you're flowing with unknowingness, you're flowing with uncertainty or something like that. And then if you have a nice tight copy and maybe like a video preview of it, I think we can get this some people here.
Well, flowing with unknowingness is a it's a double bar. Rhymes twice.
Flowing with unknowingness. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. What's your sense? Should we rename it to that? Flowing with unknowingness?
I like that. A good multi-syllabic bar. Yeah, I really like that. And that's flowing with unknowingness. I like that I'm flowing with unknowingness. I want it to be, it's like it's about relationship. It's about relationship to this unknowingness, to this uncertainty. That's how I see it. I'm good with that.
Yes. So I'm gonna change it. Maybe you can send me some copy. Uh,
Cool.
Look at
Yes.
the page or meetup page or whatever, the website, and then let's change some copy, and then I'll just change the thing. And then Travis is going to market your event, Raven's event, Socratic Speed Dating, and another one, because I think those ones would be good to, oh, the Stoic Breath, the Wim Hof repurposing.
Nice.
Because because I think those ones would be are good entry points to the Stoa. And I just love the fact, man, just like taking these cultural artifacts like freestyling, which emerged in order almost like an ecology of practice merged as an act of rebellion to a pathological culture, right?
Yep.
And it did so in an unconscious, like organic, beautiful fashion. And art came from that. That's how art comes about. But now it's like, us meta people where we cannot not be conscious of what we're doing because we're always fucking going to the meta layer. So we can kind of repurpose some of these beautiful practices and help them or let them help us get communitas.
Yep. Yeah, that's so good because that's how I feel about freestyle. I'll literally pray. I'm like, use me in the right way. Like,
Mm.
let me be an instrument. That's it. It's because I have found myself so many times tempted to like want to position myself as this thing and like and kind of form it to
Yeah,
my
yeah.
intention. And it's like, ooh, even as I embody that, I'm like, no, like every time that I've really surrendered to this expression, things are created that are much more rich than what I conjured up and what I thought it was going to be. And so like that's where I want to keep letting it take me
Mm.
is toward that rich experience of communitas and being with the music. I want to experience the music of life, and this is just one way that really is helping me do that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And something that just came up is like, you were at the Stoa since the beginning. So we've been here for 2 months now, and you've been pretty much here since the beginning. And I always got a good sense about you right away. It's like, oh, this guy has a good soul, right? It was like, it's evident to me. I sniffed it out right away. And same thing with your lady, Rhea, right? Who does currently doing the oxytocin party. Like, you guys are just like, fuck, man. Like, how these people exist? It's like so pure and innocent. And innocent's the wrong word, but it's like, I think Rhea called you a new soul when I was talking to her. Like, it's like there's
Yeah,
like
that's an interesting one to me. I've had people tell me things like I'm a volunteer soul, which means I didn't have to come to Earth, but I did. And I don't believe these things, but it is a little bit weird for me to notice patterns. I'm like,
yeah.
how are these people that are in totally different mimetic tribes? They don't know each other or really communicate. They'll say different things about me. I don't know how to relate to it because it doesn't like land on me as like, yeah, that's it. I am a volunteer soul, or like I am a new soul. But it's just interesting. Um, yeah.
So what do you think it is? What's your
Let's
theory?
see. Oh my goodness. I don't know. It feels weird for me to theorize about it. Like I just feel like
Getting all shy and like, I don't know.
I don't know. I just feel like this like really normal guy. Like um I don't know. I feel really lucky. Like I feel like really the right influences for me. I found really at the right time. I was in a ripe space in my life for transition coming out of high school, which I didn't finish. I never graduated high school. And so I was in this space of like I had I had just not even two. I had all these possible paths, and I just right at the right time, the right books, the right YouTube videos, all the right things that like reoriented me happened. And so maybe I was some of these things before all of that, but I don't know, man. It's weird for me because I notice patterns in how others describe me. And I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know what to make of it sometimes.
Hmm. My read is that I'm very sensitive to like power dynamics, like that chimpanzee politics stuff. Like I can
Yeah.
tell when someone is doing some sort of machination in order to get a higher status level, or trying to get more like climb the dominance hierarchy or the prestige hierarchy in a certain interaction. And I don't get that sense from you.
Right.
Like, so it's like, there's no like, like, I don't see you threatening people. Let's just put that way in a social interaction. It's like, oh, fucking Tyson, let's just flow together. It's not like, oh, Tyson is just trying to, like beat his chest in a certain way. Even though you
Sure.
do have that, and almost like I said, there's like a masculinity in your voice. When we were at the last collective presencing session, like
Hmm.
both you and me, like our thumos both came activated at the same time. It seemed
Yeah.
like, right? So
Yeah.
does that land for you?
Yeah, that definitely lands. I don't think I really ever had much of an opportunity to like get momentum in that game, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah,
Yeah, in that game of like rivalrous games and trying to like one up
yeah,
people and get on
yeah.
top of others or bring others down so I could feel like I was higher. I just for one reason or another I just never went that way and so I don't have much experience in it. So if I tried to do that, I just don't even think I'd be that good at it.
Yeah, it's like I always have. trouble pronouncing that word, but non-rivalrous. Yeah, non-rivalrous, games or game B kind of stays like almost you're a natural fit for it in a way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a natural fit for me where this is all going in this. Yeah, I think that I have an inclination toward play. Yeah, like wanting to play over perform.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like when sometimes I feel most myself when I'm with like my little baby cousin
Mm.
and things like that. Yeah, so and then at the same time, I'm like I have these parts of me that are waking up that are much more like directed and can be aggressive and can get angry and want to fight. And those are new. But
Mm.
what's interesting is I feel like they are awakening in the right type of container that I would want them to awaken in. Like
Right.
toward a mission where it's like, oh yeah, this is good. Like if I'm gonna learn how to turn on these parts of me that want to fight and defeat old certain paradigms or ideas,
Right.
it's like I feel like I have a good container to channel that rather than like I don't know, in a boardroom or something.
Yeah. It's funny, like when I'm writing crazy in my journal, like stealing the culture or whatever. Like you text me like, "You have my sword, sir," or something like that. Like, okay, cool. Let's bring the Thumos.
Yeah, I was also watching Lord of the Rings and like that scene where you have a dwarf and an elf and men and hobbits and a wizard and they're like, "You have my sword and my axe." Like that always stuck with me. It's like this is epic. And now here
Yeah.
we are mediating mimetic tribes, right? So we got dwarves and elves and men all coming together.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
so, yeah, you'd said something that there's this energy of like when you declare certain missions and like direction for this embodied tribe, um, it's I appreciate that. Like I feel because I look into like the world of people I've been associated with, and some of them like their mission is like stop Bill Gates, or some of them their mission is to just like spread love and light, or some like they have all these missions and like declared objectives, and or in the past there's a lot of like just entrepreneurs like they're just about like building a business and like taking care of me and mine,
Yeah.
and so like they caught me at different times in my life where I was like appreciating something about them. But there's just something here that I've found in sessions at the Stoa, in your letters, in conversations with friends that I've been meeting lately around this um, emergent game B, and that is identifying like a more something that is just that feels more right as a mission or a direction or aims. And so I think that there's something about when you have the when you actually like name some of those things, I feel like this trust in you that these are like at least good directions to
Mm.
aim the collective arrow or the ship that we're all a part of. And so then I felt, yeah, that inspiration to let you know, like if you name a mission that is important, like in a way that I can serve with my sword, which might be my words and freestyle, like I'm there.
That's awesome. Um, I have a couple of questions with that, but our hour's almost up. You cool to
Mm-hmm.
stay 5 minutes after? Or do you have to bounce?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so because you were here since the beginning of the Stoa, like kind of like any thoughts on how you see it evolving so far, and where do you think it's going?
Hmm. So I'm especially resonant with in-person events and live experiences that teach a bunch of people tools for developing communitas and an ecology of practices, and then those people building their own more like long-term permanent communities,
Hmm.
and then having something like the Stoa, which is like the place that all of these networks of communities, then we can gather and cohere in this virtual setting and engage in practices, share what we're learning, engage in dialogue that keeps us connected as embodied tribes around the globe so that we can keep learning from each other and not be like disconnected in our own little bubble, but growing together, and then having like live experiences where then members of all these embodied tribes can gather in one place and meet and share and connect.
Yeah.
So it's like a central space for this network of embodied tribes.
Yeah, man. And so it's like my plan before this whole thing was to open up a philosophical coffee shop. And I feel like I was like, I'll do it in like, a year or two. But now if COVID ever goes away, I'm doing it now, like I'm ready for it. But I still think you can operate in two economies, like the market economy where it's like a coffee shop, but then this sort of gift economy, the spiritual space. And this is the connective one, the one that you're saying. And it's kind of cool because this I would never have predicted a freestyling event. What are we calling it now again? Like I'm gonna call this
Flowing with unknowingness.
flowing with unknowing. I'm gonna call the episode that flowing with. I'm gonna write it down. Flowing with unknowingness.
That's nice.
So this I didn't know that a flowing with unknowingness session was going to happen here, but I'm so glad it did, and it feels so right. And so it's like a natural ecology of practices emerging, what we're dubbing the wisdom gym. And I'm an adjunct researcher out of the Consciousness and Wisdom Studies Lab at the University of Toronto with John Vervaeke. So the idea is to do genuine research, scientific research on this, and maybe we can have a meta understanding of how to engender, like a wise shaman, engender an ecology of practices, so everyone can do their own version of it. It doesn't have to be the exact same thing, because maybe like Raven gets into communitas with asking deep liminal questions. Maybe you get into communitas with freestyle. Maybe Daniel is with some other way. So maybe there's multiple ways, but maybe we can find like this meta framework in order for it to happen. That's awesome. And I'm not going to say the word, but it's delicious. So I had to say it. I had to say it. And so imagine there's some kind of like in-person communities. Maybe it's not a coffee shop. Maybe it's just like a retreat that like you were suggesting. And then they have this sort of like connected with this kind of online digital space. And because the age of nomadic tribes has to be over, man. That has to be done with, because that's not going to get us anywhere.
Yeah, and it's so difficult to like actually belong to any of them, because the second I belong to one and then I start to think for myself and I publicly ask a question, then I'm a normie now, or I'm a sheep, and like I'm out. So now where do I belong? I got to go jump on another bandwagon, and that's how I see it, is like bandwagon hopping.
Yeah, and I think like maybe I shouldn't say this, but maybe I'll say it anyways. It's like just like I wanted to be sort of like we're like the cool kids, you know what I mean? Like in the cafeteria, like, oh, who are these? Like, what the heck are they doing? What are they talking about? What's communitas? What's a stoa? Like,
Yeah,
I kind of want to be a little bit obscure, but not obscure enough where it's too intimidating or anything. Because I want to like what Raven says, is seduce the culture, and you're not going to seduce it if you're not attractive.
That's good. We should want to be the cool kids. I mean, and I look at myself, like, 17 years old, up for grabs. I'm really grateful that the people that I chose to go and involve myself with, they looked really damn cool on the internet. Yeah. They're making YouTube videos, traveling the world, looking good. They're fit. They're having fun. They're laughing, they had a great lifestyle, and I was attracted to it. And then I went to one of their events. I learned about radical honesty. Then boom, boom, boom. So I'm really glad that they looked at, and some people would call them out for being cocky or thinking too highly of themselves. And they were just like, whatever, like we're doing what we like. Yeah. And so I'm really glad that they allowed themselves to, want to be the cool kids. And so it's the same thing. I think there's something about that is definitely, I think it's the aesthetics, and I'm attracted to, even like if I'm looking for a book and I'm in that receptive space of wanting to get a book, I'm going to look for one where the cover and the art calls to me.
Same. Yeah. And it's like, it feels good looking good. It just does. Like when you have a stress of working out for a while and you're looking in the mirror and like, man, I'm looking awesome. It just makes you want to work out more. Like when I was talking to Colin, it's like, I want to look good naked. And he says, yeah, like I want to look good dancing. I want to look good naked. I'm like, yeah, why not? Because it just makes you feel good. But the whole idea is not to get seduced by the spectacle and then the impressions that it creates. It's sort of like the feeling looking beautiful engenders and try to like repurpose that towards the communitas, towards, this juicy spiritualness that we're aiming for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a time where I felt like I would spend so much time obsessing with things about like the way that I looked, whether it was my hair or like my skin and acne and all these things. And a lot of my creativity and attention just went toward how I looked. And so it feels good to get to a place where and I'm working on this right now with actually my body and my physical fitness, so that it's like my body looks a type of way where I'm just like, oh yeah, I feel good about it. And all of a sudden there's like almost like just like a freedom. It's like my creativity starts to then move elsewhere. I'm not concerned about if I look strong or attractive, because I believe it to be true.
Hmm.
And I know some people that will just sort of like will themselves into believing it just purely through their thoughts, which has its own things like self-love, no matter how you look, like good respect. Though for me, like I don't want that. I want to like really look at myself and be like, I look fucking awesome. On to the next thing. Now I don't have to think about it. Like I'll
Yeah,
just
yeah,
keep working out and moving, but it's not consuming my creativity or my attention.
yeah, yeah. And going back to the whole law of attraction thing, it's like just kind of willing your belief on something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're like willing something that's like doesn't correspond to reality whatsoever, right? Then you're just deluding
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So anything else you think we should touch on or jam on, or do you have any final thoughts?
One thing I was wanted to connect back to your question that sent us in down all this was about like where the stoa is going. And I was also wanting to call in because there's the wisdom gym and the psychology of practices. Then there's also the tenet of the sense making that is happening. So like having Jordan Hall on, for example. And it's like Jordan Hall is a type of person that has this view of the world that then when like representatives from all the embodied tribes come on to the sense making call, like they can learn about how they can be more usefully um, mobilized toward creating a better world for the whole. So there's something about that as well, like that sense making node that sort of informs like here now we're this embodied tribe, we've got this ecology of practices, we're becoming more wise, more strong, we have a stronger community, and it's like we're going to have our own initiatives that just arise from our creativity. But there's something that I really respect about um, the those who can sort of inform back to
Mm,
me, this is what's going on, where like the world can use support. These are the challenges that we face as a collective, and it's those are some of the things that just like kind of make it more clear how connected we are as embodied tribes, and
right.
then how we can like team up with one another. So there's something about that as well. It can be like a place that I can go and be like, okay, like our tribe, like we're strong right now. Like what can we do? Like who needs our help?
Yes,
Who needs support?
totally. And what I like about sort of, I just found myself having this sort of talent stack of basically kind of my read on the culture war, being able to speak all these different perspectives, my how to win friends, influence people with Dale Carnegie. Like I can, maybe I'm overreading or I'm patting myself on the back here too much, but I feel like I can bring a lot of people to this digital campfire that would otherwise not be in communication with each other.
Yeah.
But the idea is to bring them, be warm, get them warm by the digital campfire first, one at a time,
Yeah.
and see if they can have a communication with each other. So this is like our project at the mimetic mediation or the mediation campfire. Um, and also what you said about like, yeah, there's a wisdom gym component. There's like a psychotechnology incubator. And if something works well, then you can report it in the wisdom gym. But there's also these like sense making node sessions, like with Jordan Hall or whatever, all these kind of like really intelligent people. And I like the future dialogue. The dialogue's already happening. Because what's different about the Stoa, it's like almost like a podcast, almost like a lecture, but then there's like the additional component of the collective intelligence
Mhm.
responding to the sense making node, and it's almost like a sermon at one point, but it's going to be a reverse sermon in a way,
Mhm.
because the
Mhm.
sense maker is going to be influenced by the collective intelligence, maybe even
Mhm.
more so, right? Because we're
Mhm.
going to gain our discernment, like the collective presencing psychotech that we're doing every Friday. Um, that's just about the question. What is the question that emerges? Imagine if you
Yeah.
get really skilled at that. So
Yes.
there's going to be a two-way influence there, which is going to be quite good, especially if we can get all the different kind of chieftains of all the mimetic tribes playing here.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots and lots of potential there, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, me too. There's something really juicy about being on a session, whether it's with Alexander Bard or Jordan Hall, and a question comes up that there you see them be struck by it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's something that is like, yeah, so juicy about that I really appreciate. And then it is, it's like, well, the more that there are these embodied tribes developing their skillfulness and discernment, wisdom coming together on these, then the more skillful we'll get at asking questions. And then the more moved the thinker or the speaker giving the sermon that will be by the questions. And that's, yeah, like that's almost like just something that I'm inspired by, is that feeling in me of like, what is it that I want? And of course, there's also there's two sides of this, but I noticed something where I really want to ask a good question. And so if there's ever, because I feel like I'm less than, or I'll be left behind if I don't ask a good
Yeah.
question, it's like, okay, I can notice that. But it's the longing for me of it's the connection that happens between me and a person when I ask them a question that like arouses them.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate that experience.
That's a good heuristic to have. Like, is this question going to potentially arouse in the other person something like their daemon or
Hmm.
whatever? And it's
Hmm.
like the whole motto, or one half of the motto of the Stoa, or the mission, is like, stealing the culture. That was John Vervaeke said that, and that got prompted by a question. Uh, I think it was it Joe? Joe asked that question. I didn't ask that question. I didn't even think of that question, and he might have
Hmm.
never came up with that motto. And at Kira the Dawn, he's apparently doing like a song on it now, right?
Hmm.
That would have never emerged if someone didn't just ask a question. Um, so yeah, I love asking the right question. I like that heuristic you said, to arouse something in the other person.
Hmm. Yeah.
Cool. So flowing with unknowingness. Like, let's pitch it. When is it
Yeah.
happening?
Great. So yeah, Flowing with Unknowingness is happening on Saturdays at the Stoa, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And what it is, it's an opportunity to deepen your relationship with unknowingness, so that unknowingness becomes less scary and daunting and intimidating, and more juicy and exciting. And it really can be a modality for transforming anxiety into excitement, moving from overthinking and perfectionism to full engagement and participation. And that's what it is for me right now. And then I think the cherry on top of all of that, like if we do that as individuals and we support each other in doing it, then what is created is this wonderful experience of group flow, where our relationships become deeper, and then we are more attuned to the right questions to ask one another. And yeah, that's like the cherry on the top, is that sweet space of group flow.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. Good pitch. I think I'm just gonna cut that one as a one-off, and you can use that as advertisement.
Perfect.
All right, my friend. I'll stop recording right now. Thanks so much for coming on the Stella podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This has been a really good time.
Cool. Boom.